So we call this a -1, 0, +1 wrap up. Basically, we're just going to cover what where most people are. You got it, Chris?
Yeah, everyone's good? Okay,
cool. Good. Thank you. Okay. Where most people are, where 95% of the population lives, in -1. And then when we start a contemplative practice, what it does for us, right? It brings us, it doesn't usually never jumps us all the way to +1. It jumps us to 0, right? And we'll talk about that in detail. But it gets us to a point of being able to see what we couldn't see before, right? And that's a hard place to be for a lot of reasons. But when we're consistent with our practices, when we're consistent with staying awake, when we're consistent with the practices that keep us aware, right, then it moves us to +1. So we'll dissect that a little bit. And so -1 is the patterning in -1 is unconscious unskillfulness. You guys remember we talked about that? Unconscious unskillfulness. Right? You are doing unskillful things and you're not conscious about it. You think this is just how I am. This is just how life is. And we kind of stumble our way through. This space is mired in the kleshas. We've forgotten who we are and completely identify our sense of self externally, craving positive experiences, averse to negative experiences, and afraid of letting go of that false self. Do you guys remember the circle we made where the first is avidya, not seeing clearly, right? And then you have an experience, right? That experience, first it's just an experience, but then we filter that experience through our 5 senses. Right? It creates sensation. Or first it's perception, then it creates sensation. And then it creates feeling. That feeling is then, and this is instantaneous, right? This happens lightning fast. That feeling is then dropped into one of 3 buckets, either a neutral bucket, which is like, okay, it's just an experience, didn't matter. A positive bucket, which is like, this is amazing, I want more of this, or a negative bucket, right? Meaning I don't want any more of this, right? That creates, negative's just negative, but that creates attachment if it's positive, or aversion if it's negative, right? Attachment if it's positive, aversion if it's negative. It then, from there, drops into asmita, in the Sanskrit terminology, but asmita is the storyteller part of us. It's the part of us that then weaves a tale around it, right? If it's positive, we don't want it to end, and the story is usually something around that, right? The craving. If it's negative, we want it to end. We want it to be done. We don't want it to even happen in the first place, right? And that's aversion. Right? Something as simple as you get a flat tire on your way to work. Right? You don't then pull off on the side of the road and immediately go into action mode. Right? Most of us don't. You guys might, but most people don't. Right? They first sit there and bang the wheel, smack it, freak out a little bit. I cannot believe this is happening. This shouldn't be happening. I should have left earlier. I should have done this. I should have checked the engine light or whatever it is. I should have set the flat tire light earlier, right? We go into this, we start telling ourselves stories. We start weaving this tale around the experience that isn't necessarily part of the experience, right? This is just all mind construct. And this is what we do all the time, right? And so that creates an emotional response and allows us to not think clearly about what we need to do next. The worst things I've done in my life were based around high emotion. Right? The biggest mistakes I made, the lashing out at my loved ones, the things that I at some point regretted were because my emotional state was high, my cognitive state was low. Right? And this is what happens when we get caught in those stories. Right? Now, those stories start to attach themselves. It's similar to Michael Stone in his book Inner Tradition of Yoga talks about the rubber band ball. You guys remember that? Us talking about that or reading about that? The rubber band ball is the idea that if you take a rubber band, crinkle it up, and put another one, and eventually start wrapping the rubber bands around it, it becomes a ball, right? But the reality is, and you can squeeze it and it feels like a ball, but the reality is there's no ball there. It's just a bunch of rubber bands. And this is how Michael Stone describes our identity. it's just a bunch of stories wrapped around themselves. And they stretch over and over and over and over again. And this happens because experiences become similar enough to then create a story around it, like a narrative around it, right? I'm unlucky in love. Because I've had bad experiences with people in my life, all of a sudden I've labeled myself, I put a big rubber band around all of those little rubber bands and said, oh, I'm unlucky in love. And then, guess what happens? I don't see clearly because of my identity. And then when an experience happens, it's even remotely similar, guys, to all the other experiences I had of being unlucky in love. There's the story again. There's the feeling, there's the aversion, there's the story, there's my identity. Abhinivesa, and the fear of death, really, which really is the fear of letting go of my shit, the fear of letting go of my stories. Because just like the rubber band ball, they feel like they're solid. All the stories in my life make me feel like my identity is solid, right? But the reality is it's just a bunch of stories. And if I start to dissect the stories, if I start to create vidya, if I start to see clearly, I can dismantle all of those stories and begin to design my life. And that's the idea with the kleshas, the 5 afflictions, right? If I understand how these afflictions continually cycle, create these feedback loops in my life, I can then dissect them and decide not to play that game anymore. Does that make sense? It is the analogy we like to use is the sailboat analogy. It's as if your sails are down, you're below in the cabin, you're craving calm seas and averse or even angry at the storms, and you become a victim of the ocean. Right? If the mind is a forest, you're walking through the same pathway simply because it's easy and comfortable and known. Questions on this?
I'm so stuck in that. So it's not as simple as just letting it go. Like Becky and I had a discussion yesterday, a pattern that keeps repeating itself in my life of what I'm doing, kind of like self-sabotaging romantic relationships before they even start. And there's just huge walls and whatnot. And it's like, but how do you just let go? Like I'm automatically taking back to one of my stories when someone says like the slightest thing is quick enough, I'm done with you. And so, I mean, is it as simple as just letting it go, letting your stories go?
It's I hate to use this word, but it's as simple as being able to see clearly.
I see it.
What supports us in seeing clearly is our meditation practice. Is to sit still and notice the impulse come up. Notice the impulse to scratch the itch that happens when you're sitting in meditation. Notice the impulse to drop into the story. Notice the impulse when you hear a noise to all of a sudden create this inner narrative about what that noise was, and then how it relates to something in my life. Like this is the practice of meditation is the number one most powerful way to break the patterns. Number one. It is the most powerful way. Asana is effective in its ability to feel good, to get clear. But when we sit on our asses and meditate and we start to see the impulses come up, we feel the impulses come up and we don't react, that's the key, Shared, that to then not react in real life when what happens? The impulse comes up. My wife says something that triggers an old story from way back, growing up with 5 brothers and sisters, and always have somebody trying to push buttons, always getting in fights, and always having that thing, right? There's impulse in me that I feel that comes up if my wife says something smart to me, right? I want to battle it out verbally, right? But because of my meditation practice, I notice the impulse come up. I notice the urge, I'm going to tell her this. Oh, and then there's the impulse. Let me stop. Because I realized that could be a week of shit. I don't want a whole week of shit. I want to cut it off now and then be clear. Then that also allows me to be tactful and either say, I need a moment or ask questions or be open to really what's going on in the situation. So it's obviously it's unique to the detail, but the key is practicing meditation, committing to that practice, committing to it. We're not there yet, but that's the 0, committing to a practice that will radically change my life. And that comes down to what meditation does. right? It's awareness. So the three main reasons we meditate. It's awareness, impulse control, and empathy. Right? I have to see it first. If I can't see it, this is what Patanjali was talking. That's why he laid out the Yoga Sutras. Why he took all of these studies that were these teachings that were done for millennia and said, no, we gotta codify this. We gotta put it into a text that that can help people radically change their lives. And so if we first create the awareness through meditation, we can then control the impulses that come up. And if we can control the impulses that come up, then I don't have to take everything personal. Right? The empathy part of it, being able to see, to stand in somebody else's shoes, really is, I don't have to take it personal. No matter what the attack is, I don't have to take it personal. It's their shit. It's their stuff. And I can see it in that light, right? And then it allows me to hold my power instead of unconsciously giving my peace away to a person or a situation. This is what we do all the time. I unconsciously give my peace away to everything, all the situations, all the things that I don't like that are happening in my life, the people that annoy me, all of the stuff. I unconsciously give my peace away until I get to a point where I don't have any peace, right? Then I'm gripped in the emotion of life. Right? It's like the last 4 or 5 months that we've been living. Wonderful experience for this, right? How much of this have we experienced, right? Feels like the world's imploding sometimes, right? Except for the people that practice, except for those of us who sit daily, who do the steady practice of realizing, I don't have to take this shit personal. I can stop watching the news. I can stop listening to crazy debates. I can stop getting caught up in social media and all the bullshit that's there too, right? I can stop it because I honor myself. I hold my peace to a very, very, very high level. It is so important to me to hold to it, to not give it away to all the experiences and situations and all the other stuff. It's vital, guys. We need that. But that only comes through a consistent practice because I first have to see it. I have to be aware of it. And then I have to be able to control the impulses that come up when I see it, because I can be aware of the impulse that comes up and still fall into it. But at least I'm doing it consciously at that point, right? And then I'll take the brunt of it, knowing, okay, I consciously gave into that impulse.
Let's go to the next slide because you're kind of.
I'm jumping.
You're already getting there.
So then we we move ourselves from -1 to 0. And this is where a lot of yoga practitioners are, people that are starting their meditation practices. This is the challenge of it, and it's in here somewhere. The challenge of it is what I said before, is all of a sudden we start to see our shit, right? So the patterning here is conscious unskillfulness and conscious skillfulness. Conscious unskillfulness is that I have an awareness practice that has allowed me to start to see my stuff, allowed me to start to see that wheel we talked about, right? How an experience happens and how it pulls me lightning fast through all of this emotion. Right? It creates these sensations, these perceptions, these feelings that all of a sudden are lumped into positive, negative, or neutral, and then I tell a story around it, and then that becomes my identity because I relate it back to other stories that are in my life that reinforces my belief, right? We talked about this before. Every one of our beliefs that we hold to is what steers us in our life, but every one of those beliefs is held up by a story, right? It's held up by a story. The story doesn't have to be true. Belief doesn't have to be true. And it'll still run our lives. And so this practice is about dismantling those stories, deciding, oh, that doesn't serve me anymore, because now I have awareness. And now I can see my impulses. Now I'm not taking things personal. So let me look at what beliefs don't serve me and decide, I'm going to change that story.
But can we jump in?
Yeah.
But you don't say that. You don't say, let me look at my beliefs and see which ones serve me or don't serve me. No, because you don't know what your beliefs are. They're your beliefs. They're the software that's running everything in the background that influences how you see the world. So the only way you're going to see, like, what are my beliefs or not, is what stories are you telling yourself? That's the entry point. If you don't pay close attention to the stories you're telling yourself, you will never figure out what beliefs are serving you or not, because you don't operate that way. You don't walk around being like, I wonder if I believe this is true or not. No, you just operate and be like, that's true. I believe that. That's true. This is how this life works. That's why this is happening to me. And then all of those things that you're saying to yourself are stories that inside of them you can pull out. Oh, is that really true? That's how I'm seeing the world. And why am I seeing that? Because I believe the world operates this way. It's so important. You're never going to figure out. If I asked you right now, what are all your false beliefs? You don't know, because they're not false
none.
to you. They're your beliefs.
I have no false beliefs.
Right. But you can always find them in the stories. And then you get to ask the question, does this story serve me? And does the belief that's driving that story, is it true for me still to this day or not? Does it serve me or not? And really, it's a better question is, does it empower me or disempower me? That's the real, because beliefs at some point may have empowered you, right? After loss, guarding yourself, closing your heart down, pushing everyone away, and retiring and holding in, and like giving yourself time to heal.
Sheltering.
It's what the lobster does when it's changing its shell. That is a good thing to do. But 5 years later, that's not the thing to do anymore. Right? You get, like, at some point, you got to come out of the cave. You got to take off the armor and then let yourself love again. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's all situational in the moment. Some belief that was wired right now that's running in the background at some point served you. But the question isn't like, is it right or wrong? Does it still serve you? Is it still empowering you to live your best life or not? And how do you find that out? Through the stories.
Awaken Life formula is what we have for one of our entry points, is what we use, and understanding that we need to move. This is one of the most powerful entry points into gaining awareness. You guys know it. This is literally why you're here. I suppose you got on your mat, it did magical things for you, and you're like, I want to learn more about this. I want to teach this, right? And obviously meditation. Right? Some of you meditated before this. Some of you just started meditation practice with being part of this program. But at this point, I think I could rightfully say that you've had amazing experiences meditation. You realize that foundation is vital. And then manifestation. How do I then consciously create the life that I want to live? So we use that as our entry point into getting us solidly established in zero, and then eventually getting us to positive one. The sailboat analogy we use here is accepting calm waters and storms the same. So we're not triggered by them. Our sails are down, but we're up on deck looking around. We can't navigate, so we're just drifting. And then we're no longer a victim of the ocean. The mind as a forest analogy, we're cutting new pathways through the forest, allowing old pathways to begin to grow over, but still walking them occasionally because it's comfortable. Right? So when I was 6, I remember the day my dad told my mom that he was having an affair and he wanted a divorce. And I remember my mom's reaction. She flipped on him, rightfully so. And then I remember her like ripping down the curtains. I think she wanted to punch him in the face, but she didn't. She instead ripped down the curtains that were covering the windows, and just literally after that just melted on the floor. And then all of the kids, the younger kids, my older sister Sarah, and then all the youngest 4 kids just huddled around her and held her. And my dad left, and the experiences after that. So that was one of those experiences that created patterning immediately. right? So there's patterns that can happen in our lives that are over time. And a lot of times that's how they're developed, where we see this repetitive thing that happens, like, okay, that's how I'm going to act. Or it can be instant. If your kids or you may have had this experience, but if you have kids, you probably have had this experience of a hot stove, and they go up to touch it, and all of a sudden they burn their hand. You or your kids don't have to every day go up and touch the hot stove to realize, I will never do that again, right? That's imprinted. They're not going to then touch it probably ever again, right? They realize, well, holy shit, I just burned my hand. I will not reach up there. I don't know what's up there. It's hot, right? Same thing happened when I was 6. And it imprinted a pattern in me. And that pattern was, something's wrong with my dad. He's a son of a bitch. After that experience, seeing the chaos in my family and the intense experiences my brothers and sisters had, my dad not checking in on a regular basis, us having these experiences of graduating, doing well in sports or doing whatever the thing was, and never seeing him there, never seeing him connect, never seeing him have those experiences, being part of those experiences, created a lens, created a story that I told myself for a long time. And so I had this experience in me that at that time, being so young, served me, right? It served me to formulate a way of being that connected me to my brothers and sisters and my mom in a way, by making him the villain, right? That served me up to a point. But once I became a young adult, it didn't serve me anymore, because I started to realize that something was off, that my relationships were affected in some way, that I was having trouble in certain areas of my life for a certain reason. And this led to a phone call with him. And Chris actually had a similar experience, but a phone call with him where I just laid into him. I told him everything that I was pissed at him about. I called him every curse word I could come up with. I think I made up some. I just leveled him with it. And because of his meditation practice, he accepted it completely. He said, "You're exactly right. I'm so sorry." If there's nothing to attack, there's nothing to defend. He didn't fight back. He didn't defend himself. He didn't attack, and he completely accepted everything I was saying and apologized, which was not what I expected, and it was 180 degrees, and was the catalyst to allow me to start to create a relationship with him, to call him on a regular basis because he wasn't doing it, to go and visit him wherever he was living, and try to form some type of relationship. More important than the relationship we formed was the healing that it gave me. Very soon after, I forgave him, but I didn't forgive him to justify his actions. I forgave him to heal the missing part of me. Right? I forgave him for me. Forgiveness in that moment was a selfish act. I needed to heal. And the only way to do that was to have a conversation with him, to understand where he was coming from, even if it was batshit crazy, right? But to understand what his thought process was to decide to take the actions that he did. And in that, I found forgiveness. I said, okay, if I was walking in his shoes, if I had all the same experiences that he had in his life, the same parents and the same situations, same experiences growing up, all of the same stuff, would I have made a better decision? And the answer was no. How could I have? Right? I hadn't walked in his shoes. I didn't do all of that stuff, right? So I had to accept his decisions as he was doing the best he could. Whether that's true or not doesn't fucking matter, right? It doesn't. But it helped me get to a place that I was better, right? I was healing. After that, didn't struggle with the same things I was struggling with before. So it allowed a space in me to heal. And that was most important. Right? So this is me in -1 for a good portion of my life. And then starting contemplative practices, it really started with martial arts. It was very cathartic, and it got a lot of stuff out. I got to punch things. But soon went into yoga and really shifted me, right? And a lot of that came from being able to reach out to him and have a conversation, really understand where he's coming from. Guys good with this? Cool.
Elizabeth made the point that forgiveness is powerful and is mostly for the forgiver, not the one forgiven. She said Buddha or somebody, there's some analogy about holding on to resentment and is like taking poison in the hopes that the other dies.
I think it was Nelson Mandela? Yeah, Elizabeth. I think it was Nelson Mandela. He says, 4 agreements. 4 agreements. He may have, Miguel Ruiz may have said it also, but it's something to the effect of resentment is like taking a spoonful of poison every day in the hopes that it will kill the other person. At some point, the other person will die. Right? And so then we come into positive 1. Positive 1 is conscious skillfulness and unconscious skillfulness. So we're consciously making better decisions in our life. And we're doing that so often that it becomes part of our life, that it becomes unconscious. We just decide on better, on empowering situations, empowering stories, empowering thoughts, empowering actions, right? We start to do better things. That doesn't mean we can, there's, what I also want to acknowledge is that we're never like, okay, I'm in -1. Okay, now I'm in 0. Okay, now I'm in +1, right? We fluctuate, right? You can be in this space and still fluctuate to -1, still get caught up in an old pattern. But then we start to realize it. And so my feeling with this is that we can also be in -1 and have friends and family in -1. And then all of a sudden they can have this fluctuation into some of the higher levels and then drop back into being asleep, right? But when we do the work, it then establishes the majority of our actions and our thoughts in one of these levels, right? So law of intention and attraction, we call this a law of creation. And we broke down how do we design a life, right? What is it that we want? What is our big why, right? What is it that we want? And then what is our big why to get us there? What's the emotional charge behind it that's going to move us in that direction to get us to where we want to go, to create the life that we want to create? And why is it that we want to create that life? Right? To start to ask the really important questions, because it's so easy to get caught up in the doings of life that we never stop and ask ourselves the most important questions. Am I living a life? Am I living a values-based life? What do I value most in my life? Right? Source, health, family, service, play. That's what I value most in my life. Every single day I sit down with my journal and say, okay, if these are my reflections, if these are my values, if I'm following this path, did I do the things yesterday that follow this? Right? Did I give myself time to talk to and listen to source? Did I give myself time to work on myself, on my health, physical, mental, emotional? Did I give myself time to be with my family, to connect with my kids, to connect with my wife, to connect with my brothers and sisters, to connect with my parents, right? The people that mean most to me. Did I give myself time to be in service, to make a difference in this world, to try to make even a little impact, to make this world more positive, to make this world a better place? Right? Did I do my service? And did I give myself time to play? Did I tell myself time to go surf and to go to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, to go practice asana, to do the things that I love, to the things that spark me, right? Did I follow my values based? Because if I do this daily, if I reflect daily and go back, I start to realize really fast where I'm slipping, where I'm sliding off. And there are days that I don't connect with any of that, right? And then what was the day like? And then what do I need to do to readjust, to reset, right? And then it's my declarations. How do I want to show up for myself? How do I want to show up for others? And how do I want to show up in my service to others? Right? And claiming that this is how I'm going to be. This is how I'm going to be. I'm going to be strategic. I'm going to be accountable. I'm going to be scheduled. It's me, right? For right now in my life, those are the things I declare for others, for service. And then it's my intentions. What are my 3 intentions? My intention for myself, my intention for for others, for my relationships, and my intention for my service. What is it that I want to do? What is, it could be health, physical, mental, emotional. What is it? What is my next goal? Where do I want to go with it? For others, how do I want to enhance my relationships right now? What is the one little trigger that I can do to enhance those relationships? And then my service. What is it that I want to do with my work, my impact? Do I want to be financially free? Do I want to have freedom of time? Do I want to have freedom of location? And what is the next step of doing that, right? And so when we start to do this every single day, all of a sudden I notice my patterns really quickly. I notice the bigger patterns. Am I not following these intentions? What was the day before like? Am I not living a values-based life? Right? So we do this every single day. You guys have access to the Awaken Life Academy. Go in there and do it, guys. Go in there and do it. I know this has been crazy busy and like, holy shit, we're doing teacher training and that too, but this is what keeps Chris, or that, it's on the other page. This is what keeps Chris and I on track. To keep doing the next level of beauty for ourselves, for our relationships, for our lives, for our service, for this, you know. The sailboat analogy here is sails are up. We're on the deck with the rudder in hand. We're guiding the boat and flowing with the currents of the ocean and the wind. The mind is a force. We're walking new pathways, allowing old pathways to grow over.
Rudder should have 2 D's, not 2 T's. Elizabeth just helped me out with that.
Oh, really? Rudder. Elizabeth's a different kind of rudder.
She was like, is it rudder? And she put 2 T's or 2 D's. I was like, whichever one steers a boat. It is 2 D's.
I asked the front desk how to spell rudder, so just let you know. I think it's 2 T's.
One thing she did say that I think is worth mentioning is she says, I think it's neat that we can actually use the currents of the water and the wind to control our direction and destiny. And it's a really great point, specifically because the current and the winds are things that are out of our control. That's the analogy, right? The things that we are not in control of that are influencing our path. And if you go back to -1, those are the things that piss us off, that we feel like we're victims of. But and it's literally just a perspective shift, right? This 2020 is a test in, will we flow with the currents of the wind and the water or not, right? And you don't have to. This is the beauty of free will. You can fight it, but how much energy is wasted in fighting it? Or we can look at it as, okay, we are shut down. Hothouse is shut down. Now what? How can I utilize this to help me? Not just like I've talked about it in the teacher trainings a bunch. Let me stop the share real quick so everyone can see. And it's not just to become. Hold on. Are you done with that over there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's center back up. It's the idea of anti-fragility. I've talked to you guys about this a bunch, right? So not just something happens and then it's so fragile, something happens, we are worse because of it. Resilient or robust, something happens and we bounce back to the same place we were. Anti-fragile is that same influence happens and we become better for it. That's utilizing the winds and the currents of the water in our benefit, even though we can't control them. And there's no secret ingredient other than it's all how we choose to see it and how we choose to work with it. I appreciate so much Jade yesterday saying like what you guys did with the whole COVID thing and shutting down. It was never a decision. It didn't so my point, and I talked to Sherry about it, I didn't feel like should or shouldn't we. We were like, we have a business, we have a community, how can we keep serving the community was the only question we had. And then it wasn't like, should we? It was like, oh, then we're doing this. My point was immediately, it was a perspective of not this is going to bring us down. And I saw it in the yoga studio owners group that I'm part of in Facebook. They were like, I can't do online. I don't think we're never going to make it. My studio's too small. Excuse of this thing that is going to take them down. Immediately from the word go, they were already out of business. And my point isn't saying like, oh, we're so awesome. My point is just saying all it was just like, hey, this is happening for all of us. We choose to see it this way. And that one choice to see it this way triggered all of the actions that we chose to take after the fact.
Oh, that's so awesome because you chose. You did choose. I mean, you chose to have it, the wind fuel you instead of push you over. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, I'm so glad that I went with your guys' program and not like 500 when I was going for it. They just, you know, what happened to all those people and their money? Nothing. For you guys, honestly, you chose and you kept going, and it was super amazing because not everybody is anti-fragile, okay? But you chose, Chris. You guys did choose, and even for us, you guys were examples of that beacon of light, of hope, and work.
Well,
We chose, we saw you choose, and you influenced our lives. For me,
thank you.
Influenced like the things that like we have it inside ourselves already. It's already there. It's remembering, and you guys did, and it was awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And everyone's choosing. Those yoga studio owners group are choosing a perspective that influences the decisions they make. You all are here. Half the people that started with us are not here. They chose for whatever reason. There's no judgment. It's just a very arbitrary pull, like zoom out and look at what is driving our choices is how we're seeing life. Are we victims of the winds and the currents, or can we allow them? And I'm like, okay, maybe let's victims, let's get out of that. And let's just say, maybe we can just withstand it. Okay, great. But what if we could actually utilize them to make our lives better in the end? To make 2020 be a pivotal moment in our lives that changed us for the better.
That perspective, that's where I'm at. I just feel like I've been on a journey all my life, but it is. That is it. We made it amazing, right? I really do feel like I had heaven where I'm at.
Yeah.
You guys were a great example that you kept it going. Like you're taking classes and like, oh, you know, we're not doing it. I mean, you could have done the opposite. And then, you know, then I'd have to go my own, but it was, you know what I mean? It's like you guys were examples of perfectly placed.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And it didn't, and you're exactly right, Jay. There is choices that we're making the whole time, but it didn't feel like there was a choice. We were like, what's happening? Okay. What do we do now? Go. And then we just started running as fast as we could, stumbling our asses off. Like we made jokes during the time behind the scenes of like the tech side, just like, and we were stumbling like, oh, this camera messed up. Oh, the mic messed up. Oh, I forgot to charge the battery. Oh, we need new equipment. And I'm ordering different wires and different, like all of this stuff was because of that. Even last night, like, holy shit. But but the cool thing about it, to Chris's point, is that like when we talk to friends of ours that own studios or friends of ours that they're like, I don't know what mics to use. I don't know what cameras I don't know like why. I'm like, whoa. So it's a perspective shift for us of like all of the craziness that happened put us on another level of understanding tech, right? Understanding all of these different softwares that we needed to download and connect to the cameras and connect to do all of this other stuff that doesn't feel hard anymore, right? When we first did it, it felt like walking through mud. We're like, oh my, this new software and connecting and re-downloading and it won't connect. Why won't it connect? Let me do it again. Let me clear it and put it back on. And in the middle of all of that, my computer crashed, like died. And like, order new computers. I mean, it was just like, it was batshit crazy at times. But like Chris said, it was the anti-fragile piece of it. It was that intensity forced us to get better. It forced us to expand. And expanding is awesome when you're on the other side of it and you look back. It sucks shit when you're you're getting your ass kicked. Ass kicked.
Anyone gotten their ass kicked this year?
Right? We were getting our ass kicked, like all over the place. We go up on camera and make jokes about it and roll through it. And anyway, so you get to a point, because you jump in, get to a point that you're like, okay, all the stuff that we're getting our ass kicked by is simple now. It doesn't feel intense. It's like if we want to jump on and do this, literally do this, right? Have you guys on Zoom right now being able to be part of this didn't happen last teacher training. And even to think about it then, we would have been like, I don't know how to do that. How do you connect all of these wires and get the camera to do all of this stuff? The very first time we streamed with you guys, we did it from our laptop, right? That was weird. We had a laptop and we were all sitting. I mean, it was cool. We just did it, but it's not as good as it is now. Now we're literally doing it from the camera. And that was the challenge of it, right? It forcing us to expand. It's hard.
That is true spirituality.
It is.
Charmaine, that in that untethered soul, but at the end of that book, there were so many good things, but one of the things that he said was that spirituality begins when you decide that you're never going to stop trying. That it's a commitment to go beyond those comfort zones, those psychological cages. And even though it hurts and it's uncomfortable, when we do, we expand and there's freedom. And it's just like, that is where we are. And you can, or that's where I am. I choose. You choose. Because I mean, even think your next training, you can, now it can be online. It's like, it's awesome.
Yeah.
We're creating.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah. No, go ahead.
So part of my journal entries every single day is for my intentions. I say stay the course, trust the process. Every day I write that because I've always been a runner and so many times I wanted to stop running. You guys know. And I even wrote yesterday afterwards, what would this experience have been like had I surrendered fully and been able to commit to it. But the trust the process and stay the course, I kept going back to what you said at the beginning of this, and that was it's the person you become after the training or during the training. And you may shift your perspective and you may find where you've been, but it's the person that you become. And what I'll say is during COVID, during this whole thing, it's put me in a place of fear and fight or flight. But in other areas, my full-time job, I have excelled beyond belief. And to the point when you're talking about making a manager, and they've all recognized how much I've excelled. Balance has always been an issue for me. But just that journal entry every single day, stay the course, trust the process. Yesterday, you wrote in here that this experience is exactly what I needed. God, it is exactly what I needed. So
It's awesome.
I just wanted to share that.
It's awesome. Do you guys see that? It's just deciding to put a specific lens on. That's it. It's just deciding to see life in a specific way. And then being so diehard in that decision that you don't allow, you say, no, I'm trusting the process. I'm going to move forward and trust the process, and doing it every single day. I'm going to move forward and trust the process. Right? Chris and I, in our experience of this even, but all our service aspect stuff, iteration after iteration after iteration after iteration, and this, and moving into a space that's spending crazy amounts of money over here and time and energy, and then, oh, that's not it. And then moving over to here and like, okay, that's almost it, but there's pieces that aren't right. And then, I mean, just time after time, and I'm bullheaded. Like when I move in a direction, I keep running and running and running to the point where Chris has to say, dude, no, we're not doing that anymore.
So we had a quick story to exemplify this real quick, and then we'll pivot. His wife was throwing a surprise birthday party for him, and I needed to like keep him out of the house for a while. And so I had this new water filter. We talk about water filters. Like he puts them all together. He's like side hustle is his plumbing.
MacGyver.
He's not even that good, but he's so bullhead. He'll figure that shit out.
Right.
You know. My point is, I wouldn't have hired him had not been this other, you know, like he needed to be out of the house.
You hired me for cheap. It was a couple beers and like.
So he comes over like, and like we're about 2 hours into it, and like it's the under the sink thing, and it's not working out. And we're at a point now where I'm like, now you got to get home now.
And
And
has
I'm
to
like,
get
John,
me to the party
Yeah,
that I don't
yeah.
know about.
And so I was like, John, man, we got to go. Like, it's okay, man. I'll figure it out. No big deal. He's like, no. I think I got one more thing. And like does one more thing. He's like, oh shit, that didn't work. He was like, I was like, no, man, listen, it's my house. I'll just drink tap water. I don't even give a shit. Like, we need to leave. And he's like, no. This is it. One last thing. But for like an hour more after I was done and ready to go, he was still like a pit bull, teeth inside of it. Like, I'm going to figure it out. And the dude figured it out. He got my water running. The filter's all on. It was like, he had to do on top.
Showed up to the surprise party late, but
that's my, like, it's a blessing and it's a curse. Cause sometimes I'm like, dude, let it go. We got to move on. But the larger point is he is like a fucking pit bull. And what were you saying?
which is great, but it
exactly.
doesn't allow it makes it harder for me to pivot sometimes.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
To shift and say, okay, let's give this up. One more story. We were at a friend's house in Colorado. We were on a snowboard trip, and we're at our friend's apartment, and our friend lost his keys to his car, and he was like, man, I think I threw them away. And in an apartment, you throw it, I guess there's like a trash thing, like it goes down to this like bigger trash place where they compact it and send it off. We are like, I was like, I'm going to find this. I'm going to find these keys. So we went down. So I drove down. We searched the entire house. And they're like, I think I threw it away. We went down to the trash place, tried to hit those particular bags that he had, ripped through it all.
The dude and I are sitting down drinking a beer at this point, and John is still like wandering around.
Muscle testing to figure out, is it this half of the house? Nope, it's this half of the house. Oh my God, it's hilarious. Didn't find the keys. Damn it.
Man,
No,
he had to pay $1,000 to get them.
Yeah, although just 3 days ago, my kids came downstairs and my daughter, who's 4, she's gonna be 5 in November. She was like, Daddy, will you help us find my brown bunny? I was like, baby girl, where's your brown bunny? Where'd you last see it? She's like, I don't know. I think it's downstairs. And I was right in the middle of helping my wife make dinner. And so I was like, look, I can't do it, but I'll give you a clue of where it is. Sebastian, hold your arm out. So my boy, he's going to be 7 in November. He holds his arm out, and I start doing muscle testing. So the muscle testing, you ask a question that you know's the right question, positive question, so you can calibrate basically. So you calibrate the muscle to see where it is. Ask them a true question, ask them a false question, calibrated, and then ask. And my kids are flipping out. They think I'm doing magic, right? And like I ask, is the bunny downstairs? And he went weak. Like, so is it? We have 3 stores. I was like, is the bunny on this level? And he went weak. I was like, is the bunny upstairs? And he went strong. I was like, guys, the bunny's upstairs. Go upstairs and find it. And I went back to cooking. They're like, Daddy, you're crazy. They ran upstairs and started searching. 5 minutes later, they came down. They're like, oh my God, it was upstairs. We found it. I was like, right?
You're welcome.
Yoga magic. That was hilarious. Anyway.
Any last questions about this?
Is that helpful? Just seem to wrap up a little bit. Cool.
All right, let's take a break, and then we'll come back. We'll meditate just for a little bit. It'll be a shorter one because we add this to the morning, and then we'll do a journal writing and sharing. Cool.